This is the Segovia Show.
And welcome to the program, everyone. I am your host, Segovia. In this episode, I want to address things that we can do to fix California. One of the big questions I keep getting asked by friends and family, especially those from out of state, is when I'm moving out. I'm not moving out. I never even hinted about moving out. Investing out of state is just diversifying, but moving out entirely is a whole other story. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I've been here for getting near 4 decades. Almost all my memories are there. My investments are there. The culture, everything it's there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All the memories are Los Angeles. I'm not leaving California. If anything, I'm going to do what I can to help fix it. And that's why I felt like it was time for me to address solutions that we can present or do, actions that we can take to fix California. Now, having said that, my guest today is the chairwoman of the Orange County chapter of the Hispanic Republican Club. See, already red flags to a lot of you. You heard Republican there. And that's just sad that we live in that in this day and age where we're literally divided along party lines, where we can't listen to one another because everybody's slinging mud. Well, I'm simply trying to state facts that we got to address. And you're going to say, Andres, that's not true, because you're talking about the recall of Gavin Newsom. Hey, to fix California, you got to start somewhere. And this guy has not done things to fix California, only exacerbate problems. Granted, he hasn't been as extreme as I expected him to be, but still on the top 5 list of the worst governors in the country, and hypocrites. So I want to let you know where things are with the recall election, because you need to know whether you support the recall election or not. You want to do something about it, whether you're voting against it or you're voting for it. Eventually, we need to know where are things, because we heard that, we got enough signatures, but where's the ratification? When do we get to vote on this? And isn't the gubernatorial election next year anyway? You're going to want to know. So if you can, stick around. I'd appreciate that. But without further ado, here's my interview with the chairwoman of the Orange County chapter of the Hispanic Republican Club, Mindy Salinas. Mindy, welcome to the Segovia Show. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, who? And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because people should know about this. For those that are not aware in my audience of who you are and your organization, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization you're involved with?
Okay, my name is Mindy Salinas. I am on the board for the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club. And then I just became chairwoman of the Orange County Hispanic Republican Club. So we're just getting started. The LA Hispanic Republican Club has been around for a while. Our chairman, David Hernandez, has been in politics for quite a while. And he saw a need for not just a national level, but we needed something on a local level for our local politicians, for an outlet for local candidates to be able to express their values, their morals, and educate the communities that they come from on who they are as a candidate and why we should vote for them. Because I feel that is very important right now, is focusing on the local races. And that's mainly what our club focuses on, is local races, our city council, our judges, our board of supervisors, our school boards. Those races are vital. And we saw it in Orange County during the pandemic. I mean, our beaches were open because of who we had in office. So that is pretty much what our club focuses on. We also like to encourage people who want to run for Congress, for city council. We encourage that, and we like to be a support system for them, not just financially, but also, they need volunteers, they need phone bankers. Everything is on grassroots level right now, and that's what our club is providing to the public. So.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this a lot on my program. For those that are not aware of my show, and I guess to give a little background, I've been doing the Segovia Show since like 2003. I was doing podcasting before it became a thing, but I morphed the show for about a decade by turning it into what was called a newsreel. So I was just doing more news coverage and every now and then an opinion editorial, but to the extent of the Segovia Show with interaction with people and things like that, I didn't do that at the time. So just over 2 years ago, I I brought back the brand, and I merged it with what I do for a living because I enjoyed helping people. But one of the things that my oldest followers liked about me and what I was able to do was provide them election coverage and provide handouts for I guess a cheat sheet, as they say, for going to the booth. And I told them, I thank you for trusting me, but you need to know that elections are not just a presidential election. You can go check that one box, but then you see all these other races, and it's like that's what people neglect. That's what affects you directly the most. If it wasn't for the mainstream media constantly being at you about what's happening in Washington, you would think that they're the ones that control you. Meanwhile, they're overlooking what's happening in their backyard, like you mentioned, local races, state races here, and the city council. So now with people being so scared, like with regards to what's happening with our school systems, what they're pushing on our children, with respects to what's happening in health and all this. And everybody's like, I'd say feigning shock. Like, how did this happen? Right underneath your noses. You didn't do anything about it. You were more concerned about mean tweets. So there's just like, that's why people need to wake up to it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring it out, so people know that organizations like yours exist, because they also support local chapters and local candidates and stuff. But before we get into the whole where the recall thing is at and what's been behind it, you were actually at it looked like it was an event where Don Wagner was speaking. He said something pretty interesting, because for those that are not aware, they probably heard about the tragic and frankly stupid story of Aiden. I think his last name is Leos.
Leos. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 6-year-old kid. His mom was taking him to school, as Alexis what I saw from the news, and in a fit of road rage, someone shot at the vehicle, and they struck 6-year-old Aiden and killed him. And to this day, we still don't know who is who's the one that shot him. So now there's a campaign for who killed Aiden, to bring in tips of anything of its kind. Can you chime in a little more, reiterate some of what Don Wagner was saying at that event? Because I think that's pretty pivotal to what's stifling the manhunt, if you will.
Yes, he was just basically letting us know that he was putting efforts together to get others on board and have the CHP get on board, kind of like a place where people can call in, give tips. It was just going to be something to catch who did this crime. And CHP was on board. They were, all for it, all going for it. They wanted to be a part of it. It's great efforts that they're putting forth to help find this killer. And as soon as they found out that Don Wagner, or as soon as Sacramento found out that it was Don Wagner who was hosting this conference, they made a phone call to CHP and told them they're not allowed to be involved in this. CHP was like, why? Sacramento is because we said so, pretty much. So they had to back out of the efforts, and they weren't able to attend the press conference that Don Wagner was hosting. And it's pretty much like, just playing politics, when politics should not be involved in a case like this. And that is what the left pretty much does. That is who controls Sacramento. We know who controls Sacramento. And Newsom, he controls Sacramento. So and Wagner has been very vocal about the Recall Newsom efforts. He has been very vocal. So, I don't know their relationship personally, but I believe that's why he wouldn't allow CHP to be involved with these efforts.
It sounded like there was some animosity there from previous history. But Don Wagner, I believe is it the Orange County Supervisor? Is that it?
Yes, for the 3rd District, Orange County Board of Supervisors, the 3rd District.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And that's a name that people need to know about, for those that are in Orange County that are within his district. They like what he's doing, to keep him in mind for should he and when he runs for election or a higher office. But I was a little shocked at that, because are you kidding me? So here's another thing to not like about Gavin Newsom. When it says Sacramento's calling, it can only mean one thing, exactly. Gavin Newsom. Yes. So with respects to this, the the country's talking about it because, of course, they have to. California is the largest state in the union. The money's been pouring in also from out of state to oppose and support the recall efforts. And obviously, we're the state that I believe in the past 15 years or so are the only ones that have successfully recalled a sitting governor and replaced him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, like, well, Californians are at it again. No, not entirely. This guy's not a Gray Davis. This is worse. And of course, the mainstream media has been all over this because, of course, they have been. They've been spinning it like crazy, and a lot of them were trying to blame, like LA Times was trying to blame alt-right. Right. I don't see a white supremacist speaking with me here. What do you do, and why did you get involved with the recall? Because you were pretty on it here in Orange County and Los Angeles.
Yes. Well, I pretty much started during the shutdown. It was kind of like, at the beginning, bills were getting passed under our nose. No one was paying attention to these things. And then, excuse me, during the whole shutdown and just the way that he handled the shutdown, I just couldn't sit back anymore. I couldn't sit back and just watch these things go by. So me and some others, we started getting more involved. We started hosting our booths, and as we were going, it was like he was just making more and more bad decisions. Closing the churches down was a huge reason why we had so many people that weren't even Republicans anymore. We were having people drive an hour and a half just to sign the petition. And they weren't even Republicans. They were Democrats, and they were bringing their Democrat friends because everybody was just so fed up with pretty much the way he handled, the whole pandemic. I mean, I can go on and on about that, but
yeah, of course. Hold on, but you're saying these were not all Trump supporters?
No, not at all.
Okay,
not at all.
I trusted the mainstream media not to lie to me about that.
Right.
But so what Beverly Hills mansion do you live in?
I don't live in Beverly Hills mansion. Not
yet. Wait, so you're not a politician, you're not the entitled, you're not of the rich community. You're just like, that's just me just trying to have like a fun way of saying, look, this whole thing's been a grassroots effort. It's had tons of opposition, and I guess I got to be careful with my wording here, because for those of you watching on YouTube, I just giving you a heads up that you're not going to get the full interview here because the sensitive topics that we have to address here, YouTube does not permit to discuss in full. So you'll be able to watch the rest of this interview on the show notes accompanying this episode at www.dangeroussegovia.com. For those of you that are watching away from YouTube, don't worry about it. Just keep watching. You'll see the cursor. Just keep watching the rest of the interview. But it's with respects to signature verifications. And there was a little bit of a concern here with respects to that in the previous election. However, nothing was done about that. But when it comes to the recall, now they want to install that, and fact check not true is what the left-wing fact checkers say about this. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're calling up people to verify, did you sign this? Did you not? Do you really want to recall so-and-so, or were you kind of duped into signing this petition? How is that not verifying signatures?
The verifying signatures thing is insane. I mean, we have to make sure there's a tiny little box that is on the petition. You have to make sure that every person that comes stays within the lines, that they spell out their complete address. I mean, you have to put like 111 Wisteria Lane. You have to I'm just making up an address, but Lane had to be spelled out, Lane. There's no abbreviations. The signature has to match the registered voter's signature. It's crazy, but yet to vote, he's pushing out, you don't even need an ID. So yeah, verifying the signatures, that is why we were above, are aiming above the amount of signatures needed, because we knew that they were going to toss out half the signatures because of people going over the lines or abbreviating the street names, whatever it is. They were going to do anything that they can to toss out the signature. So that was insane, the guidelines that they have for signature verifications on this recall effort.
With signature verifications, also with signature matching? Okay, that I did not know that they were doing, but I thought that was racist. So
No, anything to get the signature out. So we were encouraging people, and I guess for the same thing coming up, Recall Gascon, we were encouraging people, sign anytime you see a petition, even if you've already signed, sign it again, because you never know if your signature got tossed out. So that's probably a good tip to keep going forward for others that will be recalled.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And you touched on something that we're going to address a little bit later after we wrap up the recall segment. Now, I'm glad that we actually brought that up, because enough signatures were collected. I think over 2 million, and I think we needed like 1,700 or 1,500 to approve this.
I believe so. Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that it was above what was needed. So
yeah,
good.
So technically, yeah, it's a go, but we haven't heard anything since. I think the Secretary of State right now is we're just waiting for where I think right now they're doing that signature verification they say they wouldn't do.
What was that?
Right now they're doing that signature verification they said they wouldn't do it because we don't have a date for the recall yet.
We don't have a date yet. No, there's not a date yet. I know that as soon as we get a date, last night it was brought up at the meeting I was at, as soon as the date is released, it's going to come out right away. And then going forward from there, it will be on a special election, a ballot, I believe. And people are going to have to go in, and it's going to say, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom? You have to check yes, and then you will have to check who you want to replace him after that. So those will be the next steps once the date is given to us, which I honestly don't have any information of when that's supposed to be expected.
Yeah.
But I do know that the next steps will be the special election to have him recalled. And it is going to be very important that when they ask you those questions, because there's going to be 2 boxes to check. Do you want to recall Gavin Newsom? You have to put yes. And then that takes you to the second question of which governor do you want to replace him?
Yeah. And it's speaking to that effect, because there's quite a few that have tossed their name into the ring. We've heard the likes of Caitlyn Jenner. Looks like John Cox is running again. I think Major Williams announced on his Instagram that he made the list of the short list of the recall. Diego Martinez, who I mentioned at the pre-interview that I spoke with him, and that interview is dropping after we speak. But I did speak with him before we got a chance to talk, and he touched on something that was interesting. So that's why I spoke with him after the fact. I'm like, Mr. Martinez, what do you mean that the recall election is perhaps the most secure election that we'll have, at least in this time? And he was mentioning that very thing you said, because technically there's 2 questions you have to answer, and it makes it a lot more difficult for a system to do a bit of a fake out. And that's something that if we touch on that, we'll touch on that after the break. But with respects to, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom, yes or no? And then fill in, who do you want him to replace? Who do you want to replace him with? And that's what makes it a little different. It's like, fascinating. Because I didn't know. There's no time for a primary. So if there's like 20 Republicans running,
I know.
They could split the vote.
You know.
So either there's no primary, but we can get behind somebody, or we're just looking ahead to see what happens in 2022, because technically the gubernatorial campaign is next year, to which why some would ask, why recall them? Wouldn't this be a waste of money trying to do now, considering that the campaign technically is next year anyway? Do you have a response to those?
I don't think so at all, because I think it's more than just the recall. I think it's seeing how many people rose up and put in efforts to get this done. It's kind of like we're making a point that we are here and that we are going to be vocal and that we are not going to back down and we're not going to stop. And everybody would, I mean, even when I was running the recall booths, people were like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your money. You know, it was a lot of negative feedback, and like, he's never going to get recalled, you know, and all of the efforts that we put in obviously paid off because it made the ballot. And I think this got a lot of attention to California nationally, not just in California. And so now people have their eyes on California, and we need help right now. California politics, we need the help. I know we said we talk about it later, but just voter integrity or election integrity. So all eyes are on California right now. And I think it is because of the Recall Newsom, seeing that how many people signed the petition, how many people are not happy with our governor. So I don't think it was a waste of money, waste of time. Regardless of what happens, we are making a point and we are here and there's a lot of us. So
Yeah, there are. And because the big interest groups that are here in California, now they're coming out in force. Yesterday was announced that one of the big labor union groups is contributing, I don't know how many millions of dollars to basically crush the recall efforts. And I pulled up calmatters.org this morning because they have a breakdown of how much contribution has been made towards these recalls. To the recall effort, it's just California numbers alone is $3.6 million. Some change from out of state, but the majority from both efforts is being raised here in California. However, the anti-recall contributions as of, I think, yesterday is at 11.3. So they're at least 3 times higher funding than the Recall Gavin Newsom effort, to show that, look, the whole thing has always been an uphill battle, and people need to realize, these are not going to be handed out to you. You have to put in the work, and I saw you putting in the work. It's not like you don't have anything else to do. You have a job, and you're also basically, for the most part, volunteering your time with the Republican Club. The Hispanic Republican Club is starting up the whole new chapter, and bringing awareness to all these things. People understand that takes a heck of a lot. It's a Herculean effort. And yes, we know what we're going up against, because in California, we have a super liberal majority. That is the term. When you have a majority of one party, because we're literally a one-party state, controlling the legislative, judicial, and the executive branch here, where you can't basically filibuster. What happened to Ling Chang and the Republicans last year was just unacceptable. All the Republicans were blocked out from voting down this bill. I don't remember which Senate bill it was, but it was basically one that protected sex offenders. And no one was talking about that the Republicans were blocked out from voting. That's all on the Democrats, and they passed it.
Yep. Yes, and it's public record. Like, people can actually hear us telling them this information, and they can look it up and fact check it, but they still don't. They don't want to, and it's frustrating. I don't understand. So
it's because unless it's spoon-fed to them by the sources they rely upon, then it doesn't happen. It's kind of like, well, if a tree fell in the forest, doesn't make a sound. That's kind of how they've been living. It's like, no, now you have to pay attention. I'm passionate about this particular subject. So probably my audience is watching has never seen me speak like this more on the public side. But for those that fall off the record, they will know that, I've been very vocal about these things. I got as many people to sign the petition as possible. I printed it at home. And had I been of a better mind, I would have taken your advice and signed it even more times, just to make sure that they don't toss my my signature out. But again, that's something to keep in mind for next time. We already mentioned it. What if Gavin Newsom doesn't get kicked out? Like you said, we're still sending the message, and I think that with all this, it'll at least bring to attention those that actually have solutions that we can keep an eye upon for next year, because this year's is just flying by. So next year's going to be here anyway. And that's how I feel about it. How do you see it? What if Gavin Newsom remains?
If he stays, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if he stays, we can't just, move on to the next thing, I guess, which is finding the right candidate who will run California and putting efforts into helping them. I don't know exactly who yet would be the best fit. I know that I've heard from several people running, and I like the ideas of many, or of some. But I guess that's all we can do going forward. If Gavin does stay, then we will just continue to go forward and do what we need to do in fixing California. And that's focusing on who we're going to choose for the next governor, and still being a voice heard, and, making a stand and being vocal and being bold about what we believe in and what we want for California. So there's a lot to be done still. Even, if he does, there's just so much to be done.
Of course.
And
it starts, like you said, locally. So it's in our backyard. We do something about it, particularly a big one. And you touched on it, because I think we basically touched on all what needed to be touched upon on the recall. Right now, we're all just waiting to hear word. When is the date that we can go? And like I had told my audience, look, whether you support the recall or not, you're going to want to know what to do. So yes. I'm going to inform you on what to do, whether you support it or not. The point is that this is still an effort of the people. Their voices need to be heard. And right now, I pulled up the calmatters.org. I'm looking on the list of who's supporting the recall versus who's not supporting. The pro recall, the ones that contributed the most have been individuals, it seems, and a couple of political action committees, one Mike Huckabee, the one California Revival, and of course the California Republican Party. But other than that, it's a mixed bag, and a bunch of people that have supported out of pocket. Just like Cal Matters says, they can't track the small donations, and this, when you see it, it doesn't even add up to all that much with respects to how many have supported from their whatever they had left from their hard hit financial year. But when you look at the anti-recall, this one hits me hard because it's a bunch of unions. Because of course they are. We have the professional engineers in California. We have the United Nurses Association, and this is the one that upsets me the absolute most, because the union that's paid out the most is the California Association of Realtors, that I happen to be a member of. I'm basically offsetting my vote here. Right. Yeah, and I did not listen to this morning. I had mentioned in the pre-interview that my blood was boiling. This is why. Because in the Fix California series that I'm working on, including this one, I'm saving my last one as an open letter to my association in the state, because I'm a part of three: the National Association, California Association, and my local chapter. I stopped supporting the Political Action Committee, but I don't know where my funds are being used when I paid my union dues to the CAR. Are they using it for this? Because I just literally canceled out my vote for the recall. And I'm shocked. I'm like, dude, I should have known better, but CAR is responsible for statewide rent control. They're the ones that basically misinformed those that opposed statewide rent control and got them to accidentally vote it in, AB 1482. And like, okay, so I was at a meeting with the lawyers, and it was a member meeting for CAR. And it's like, what are you guys going to do about it? It's like, it's too late now, too much money to try to put into it. It's like, wow, you guys don't really care. And their latest efforts are showing, because they're really going woke, they're really showing that they're going the way to basically destroy housing in California. It's like, wait, I thought we as realtors are supposed to serve the community and help with housing, but you're pushing measures and initiatives that are continuing to destroy housing in California. And that's kind of a little bit of a rant on my side, but this is what disappointed me the most. When you have these big unions crushing small business owners or employees like us, it's always going to be a Herculean effort. But like you said, we're going to make sure our voices are heard, which is why I'm using my platform for those very means as well. And there is another thing in relations to all this, in a way that it's not just what's happening at the state level, but something that's happening locally that you're a part of, and you mentioned it earlier. You're being involved with the efforts to recall Gascon. Yes. And for those that are not aware, can you tell us who this guy is?
Yeah, he's a district attorney, the LA district attorney. He is pretty much in support of defund the police. He is lowering the standards for people who are committing crimes. I have a whole list of things. It's just in my phone, so I can't pull it up right now.
Oh, but yeah, and that's something I was hoping that you'd have at the ready anyway. But basically, he's allowing crime to not be penalized, but
Yes.
penalizing those that are law abiding. And
right. And defunding the police. So taking away our protection from the criminals that he's letting out. And and this is also a nonpartisan issue. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. The people that are behind this and supporting this, there's a lot of police departments, there's a lot of city council members, there's a lot of just community watch, people who are in fear of this man. And so they're all getting behind these efforts and are willing to, get on board with the whole Recall Gascon, and that's what's coming next. So
yeah. And what people need to know about with respect to how this guy got in, he's a George Soros-backed candidate that had that much political capital at his disposal to be able to run a campaign. Not only did he destroy San Francisco, now he's here to destroy Los Angeles. And he ended up replacing the first Black district attorney, Jackie Lacey, to like, okay, if we're going to be scoring points based on diversity, this is the worst thing you could have done, Los Angeles. So apparently go undo the white privilege this guy had to replace a Black woman that got a position there. But
and keep in mind right now also in LA County, it is at the highest crime rate. It is at the highest homeless poverty problem that we've had, and so him making all of these changes just does not make any sense. Like why?
Yeah.
Why, why can't you focus on fixing LA and focusing on the real problems instead of making things worse for people that are living here? It's
unfortunate. It's sad. It's people like us that suffer the most. So everybody that has been supporting him and whatever. So yeah, not only do you not live there, whenever you want the problem solved, you want like oh yeah, I want to help, but let it help over there away from me. Like when the rich celebrities were all about bend the knee to BLM and defund the police. And say, we can't, the police, so we have cutbacks, we can't go patrol your area. It's like, no, wait, we need you here. You guys are gonna come here? Okay, then we'll just pay for our private security. Mm-hmm. Well, lucky you have that ability to do so. But exactly. Over here with the strict gun laws that we have, so you take away the security blanket and also the means for people to protect themselves. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is releasing over 70,000 criminals from prison, over 60,000 of them violent felons, all due to the virus of unknown origin that we cannot speak because YouTube won't let us. I don't know how much more time I have with you, but I did have a question regarding election integrity efforts. Is that something that you're able to touch upon? If not, we can wrap it.
Sure. Well, I know if you go to the Election Integrity Project of California, you can just put that in Google and you can donate towards their cause. There's a girl that I actually am friends with who pretty much runs the California part of the election. So she's always having events and getting people together to get informed on how they can help with elections, because we're going to need volunteers. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
We're going to need volunteers. We're going to need people who are going to poll watch. So they will inform you on how you can help with the election integrity, because it's, like I said, the Recall Newsom brought a lot of it. Sorry, my sister keeps calling. Brought a lot of attention to California. So I think that the next thing to focus on, which is actually the most important thing to focus on, is the election integrity. We need fair elections in California in order to get anywhere.
Yeah, and it's to that point that if you don't mind, that's something that I like to address with the break. So I'm gonna tell the YouTube audience that they can finish this interview with respect to this topic at the website here at www.thinkersegovia.com. But as we're signing off from YouTube, can you let people know how they can learn more about the Hispanic Republican Club, whether it's LA or OC, and where they can learn more about the Recall Gascon and things like that? Because I think you have an event coming up, right, for your first booth and all that?
June 19th, we have our first booth. I don't have the location yet, but I will post it on our Instagram as soon as I get that location set. But our website is OCHRC.us, and then the Orange County chapter is OCHRC.us. Did I say that right?
and for those of you that are watching and listening, I'll be leaving links to all these contacts in the show notes also. So it's not just they gotta rattle off the top of their heads, but I will have links to all this so you can learn more about it. Okay, so for those on YouTube, this is where we leave you. Check out the rest of this interview at www.segovia.com. If you're on other platforms, just don't mind the break. I'll see you after this. Hey, you made it to the end. I hope that means you liked this episode. So by all means, to show your support, hit that like button down there. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you please would, share this with somebody you know that will benefit from the content of this channel. See you in the next one.